Thanks to everyone who's been introducing themselves in the chat and popping their LinkedIn profiles in there. That's really, really helpful, and it's great to see so many returning names I haven't seen before. So that's fantastic. We're growing a lovely little group of people who are so supportive of each other, and that's exactly what I wanted from these Let's Chat live sessions. So that's fantastic. So welcome to July's session. This will be our last session before the summer break. We'll be back on the 23rd of September, and I'll post in the chat a link so you can get all signed up and ready for that one in a moment. So what I wanted to do was follow a similar pattern to what we did last time. For those who joined us in June, I did something a little bit more formal with slides to just keep us on track and make sure that you're getting the most out of these sessions that you can. Again, your feedback would be great if you find this way useful. I had some great feedback last time, which is why I'm doing it again this way. But if you'd like to see a different way, please let me know. If you want some topics that you'd like to see me cover. And of course, as always, if you've got any questions, any thoughts, any feelings that you want help with or want to express, please let us know. This is what these sessions are for. So today, I was going to have a look at new case for support elements to consider. This is something that I've been asked a lot since our last session. Is there anything new that we should be thinking about including in our cases for support? These may be things that you've already thought about and that you're already including, but these are just things that I've been noticing trusts and foundations are asking for more and more. So are things that I'm now putting in my case for support when I pull them together. So might be good for you. Thoughts on the Ludlow application portal. I hope a lot of you managed to go along to last week's session. So I'd love to hear your thoughts and feelings about that and whether you got much out of it. And we'll also recap for some of you that couldn't attend that session, some of the things that were discussed, and we can kind of dissect that and have a look at it and see what our thoughts and feelings are. We're going to have a look at the Greg's Foundation, a quick overview of this round. It opened earlier this month and closes next month, so it's quite a quick turnaround for this one to get your applications in. So I thought we'd have a quick look at that. The James Tudor Foundation, they've recently had a relook at the way that they do their funding, and some of the things there that they're doing are interesting, and it's really now really clear what they want to do with that funding. So it might be good for us to just have a quick look at that and see how it affects you if you've had funding from them before, or if you haven't had funding from them before, if there's a new opportunity there for you. And we've also been talking about LinkedIn for trust fundraisers. And I want to know if you've had any successes. Have you tried anything? Is there anything that you've learned from doing it? Is it something you're just dipping your toe in at the minute? Is it something you haven't put time aside for at the moment, but would like to? So we'll have a recap of that. And of course, your questions, anything you want to bring up, either on these topics or anything else. I'm just going to be invaded by a cat. Here she is. Oh, here she is. If there's anything you want to bring to the table, anything you want help with, any successes that we can celebrate. I love celebrating successes, and I love all of us coming together to celebrate successes too. So if you've had any good wins, anything you want to share with us, how are you all feeling? Are you feeling good? I hope you've all put some time aside to have a break. Sometime over the summer. I've got a week off in August, so I'm looking forward to that. It's really important for us to look after ourselves, look after our well-being, and make sure we get some downtime and step away from the stresses of the trust fundraising landscape. So feel free to pop in the chat any successes that you've had, anything that you're working on at the minute that you'd like some help with, any thoughts, anything that you've got going on. That would be fantastic. So while you're doing that, I'm just going to give you a quick overview of who Monetary Fundraising are, in case you've never attended one of these sessions before or never come across us before. So Monetary Fundraising are who I work for, and are who are putting on this free session for you today. For more than 14 years, Monetary Fundraising has been supporting organisations like yours to secure income from high value sources, so major donors, trusts, and capital appeals. It's that money and income that you need to really thrive, and we do this through strategic donor focused fundraising, again on trust fundraising, major donors, and capital appeals. We work with fundraisers like you across the UK, delivering training, consultancy and practical support if you need it. There's nothing that we couldn't have a look at for you and try and help you out in any way that you can. We work to all sorts of different budgets, whatever your need is, short term, long term, we can probably help you. So if you're interested in finding out more about our services and how we can support you, the contact details will be at the end of this webinar, but you can also pop along to our website, moneytreefundraising.co.uk. And who am I? Why should you listen to me? Well, I'm Stacey and I've been working in fundraising for 20 years. I can't quite believe it. I've worked in all sorts of different fundraising practices, but mostly trusts and foundations, and that is where I've come back to after being a fundraising manager. It's my absolute passion, helping people with trusts and foundations and working with them as well. I've worked across lots of different sectors: health, social welfare, animal welfare, disability and fuel poverty. So hopefully I'll be able to offer some insight broadly or in those specific sectors as well. Please do connect with me on LinkedIn. I popped my profile in the chat earlier and it'd be great to connect with you. So just before we have a look at the new elements to consider, I'm just going to have a quick look in the chat. So Edward said, my colleague got a 360,000. It's so big I couldn't get my mouth around that number. Grant this week from a funder who is spending out their money. They normally give us 7k. That's amazing. That's amazing. And it's great to hear that those, even though they were spending out, that money is still there in the sector if we're lucky enough to be able to find it. So that's, oh, someone said someone's forgotten to mute themselves. So just a quick reminder, please do mute yourself and turn your camera off unless you're asking a question or want to, input something. It just helps with our recording for those who couldn't join today and for you to look back on later. Dale says, I got a lovely email which said my letter of introduction was the best letter this trust had received, and they said it was really clear, sat out everything, and they wanted us to know all on two sides, which was lovely. That's fantastic. That's lovely feedback, and not something you always get from a letter of introduction. It kind of sometimes goes into the ether, doesn't it, and you never see it again. So that's amazing. Well done, Dal. That's fantastic. Well done, everybody. I hope you're keeping your spirits up. It's really tough at the minute, isn't it? And I think we're hearing a lot about redundancies and things in the sector, which kind of makes us all a little bit wobbly. But all we can do is keep looking after ourselves, keep supporting each other, and keep, getting lovely feedback like that. And that just gives us a little boost, doesn't it? And helps keep us going. Well done, everyone. So back to what we were going to talk about. So like I said, since the last session, I've been asked a couple of times if there's anything new that people can put in their case for support to help refresh it, anything that I've seen emerging from funders. And there are four main things that I've now started to include in my case for support for each of my projects. And these are things that I've noticed funders are asking more for, talking about more on social media, the impact that they're having in these areas. So those things are getting your beneficiaries involved in the design of your projects. That's really, really an important one. If you're doing a lottery application, it's one of the first questions that they ask. It's one of the themes that runs through all the questions that are being asked, is about how you're talking to your community and how you're involving those beneficiaries in the design and how you're getting feedback from them. So to be able to capture that and think about how you're going to do that not only helps flesh out your case for support for when those questions comes up, but it also makes sure you're doing those things from the very, very beginning. So you're involving those beneficiaries in your project design. You're making sure that their voice is heard in the way that you're running your projects, in the way that you're making sure they're fitting the need that they want, and making sure that you have those feedback mechanisms in place from the very beginning. So have you got your baseline data in place so you know where you're starting from, and that you're making sure you're checking in with your beneficiaries periodically to make sure everything is still working the way you want it. They're getting the benefits from your project from them. So to be able to put that into your case for support just helps you have those conversations early on with members of the service teams, your volunteers, whoever you're getting to help you facilitate that feedback. So it's really, really important to be talking to your beneficiaries early and getting their input. The next is long-term sustainability. So this is something we often think about from an environmental point of view. What's the sustainability? How are we making sure that our projects are sustainable from an environmental point of view, but not necessarily how we're making sure our projects are sustainable beyond the grant that we might receive. So funders are asking these questions more. What happens when we can't fund you anymore? Because funders don't have a finite amount of money to give us. And they don't want to feel like we're relying on them for ongoing costs. So they want to know what thought we've put in around what's the next steps. So that might be training volunteers to go out into your communities to deliver something that you were paying somebody to do. So that might be training, getting money to train them. That could be part of your project. Helping create that legacy from that funding that you might receive, because you're going to train those volunteers up to then be able to go into the community and deliver it. That could be, we're going to start asking people to contribute towards we're going to do a free session for so long, or when people first join the sessions, we're going to do it free for so many months, and then we're going to ask them to pay a small amount towards to help you become more sustainable. But it's definitely worth thinking about these things when you're writing your case for support and you're setting out what your project wants to achieve, because that's usually at the early stages. Because then that helps you think about those things and have those conversations with your finance team, have your conversations with your service delivery team about how you could potentially make those projects more sustainable and more legacy driven for your funders. Because if they think that the project is good and then it will keep going, and you've thought about ways that it can keep going, if you then need additional funding to help train those volunteers, they might want to fund that because they understand the fundamentals of your project and why they would want to give to that area to help you be more sustainable. The other one was social value. So looking at not only the impact that you're having on your beneficiaries that you've included in your project and that you know what they need, but also the wider impact that you're having on society, on the environment. This is another question that I've seen coming up more and more. Lots of local councils have social value calculators on their websites that you can use to work out your social value, but even starting to think about that wider impact. So say that you're doing a health and fitness class for older people. So the immediate benefits of that fitness class is that you're helping those people get healthier, you're improving their mental and physical well-being. But also the wider impact could be those people don't need to see their GP quite as often. They are walking more, so they're not using their cars more often, which means the environment is improved. There's not as much strain on the health services in your local area. So it's thinking about, actually, our project does this to our beneficiaries, and we know that and we can demonstrate it, but it can also do all of this that's wider and things that we might not have thought of. Social value is something that is coming up a lot in the corporate world, and corporate organisations are thinking about their own social value. And I think it's important for us as organisations and trust fundraisers to think about our social value and how we can tap into that and how we can demonstrate that our charities are providing that social value too. And then lived experience. This is something that's been around for quite a while now, lived experience. But again, I'm seeing it come up more and more on applications that they want you to really, really talk about lived experience. It's been dotted about before, but it seems to be something that's growing. So again, capturing this in your case for support just means you're armed and you have all that information ready to go when you're making your applications, but also means that you're asking these questions earlier on, and that you're getting your organisation to think about these questions. If you can show that potential funders want the answers to these questions, and you don't feel like maybe your board is as diverse as it could be with lived experience, or that you don't talk about lived experience enough with your volunteers, this could be a way to bring those things to the forefront and let you have those internal conversations, because you're starting to need them to put into your case for support. So those are 4 things that I think are really good to be able to lay it into your case for support now. If you're looking to refresh, you're looking to go back through and add in other things that you think are going to be important. Feel free to add in the chat if you've come across anything else that we can add in. It's always really useful to share ideas and to have a look at these things that you're noticing that are coming up that you need the answer to more and more. I'm just going to have a quick look in the chat. Louise says, in the old days, financial sustainability often meant government funding picking up the tab in the long term once solutions piloted and demonstrated by charities, but now it's the other way round. More expected, needed of charities. I wonder too whether, if we're honest, we want to tell funders that we can do without their grants. I think looking at long-term sustainability isn't saying that we can do without their grants. I think it's saying we appreciate the grants that we've been given, and that we are looking at the long-term sustainability of our projects to make sure that they can carry on if we weren't able to get any more funding. Here's what we do to create that legacy. If we had to step back as a charity and couldn't afford to do these things anymore, here's what could continue without us. And it might be 1/10 of the project, it might be 25% of the project could continue, but it's funders are asking these questions, and so we need to be able to answer them, and because they're looking for ways that you're thinking about how could we continue if we didn't have the funding in place. Cat's back again. And you know, as funding is harder and harder to get, to be able to show that we've thought about these things and that we're looking towards the future and that we're using a funder's potential funding to the best that we can to help create these sustainable bits of our project. It's not all going to be sustainable. We couldn't do without grant funding or funding of some kind. It's showing that we've thought about which elements we could try and show there's a legacy there if we weren't able to get any more funding. Abby says, another idea, showing that your work fills a gap rather than duplicating work covered by another organisation already, or how you're working in collaboration with existing local services. Absolutely, that's another really good one. If you're not already doing that in your case for support, is definitely adding that in. There was a question, I can't remember what application form I was completing the other day, and that asked that exact question, because they don't want to fund statutory funding, a lot of funders, and so showing how you are not statutory for a start, but how you are unique and how you're doing things differently is really good, is a really good one to show. Or how you're working in partnerships, that's another one as well. Funders want to see that you're using your resources to the best of your ability, that you're using the knowledge from different partner organisations to make sure your project is as full and is as wide as it possibly could be, because you're working in those collaborative ways. Holly says, long-term sustainability also looks at having a good mix of income streams, not too heavily weighed towards one stream. Absolutely. We all know this, don't we, as fundraisers, that sometimes some organisations can put too much reliance on one income stream. And like trust fundraising at the minute, you know, we're not seeing the high rates of return as we might have been doing 5 or 6 years ago, pre-COVID. And so being able just relying on trusts and foundations, trust fundraising income is never going to help create that sustainability. So definitely having those long-term plans to be more diverse in your income mix is always a good thing. So I hope you found those useful, those things that I've just come across and that I'm now incorporating more heavily as separate. Rather, I may have been doing these before, but probably as part of the answer to some of the other questions, but now I'm pulling these out and having their own separate headers to make sure that I'm thinking about these. And in some cases, it has really helped have those internal conversations where some of these things might not have been thought of. You might not have some of these things in place. So it allows you to have some tricky conversations because you're doing it because the funder will ask you. So it kind of gives you that green light to go, actually, I'm going to be brave and I'm going to ask these questions. So let us move on to the Ludlow application portal. How many of you managed to join last week's can we call it a Meet the Funder? Kind of Meet the Funder webinar where they were looking at the Ludlow portal. I hope many of you managed to go along. If you didn't, we're going to have a chat about it today and have a look at some of the things that came out of it. Personally, it wasn't quite what I wanted to get out of it. I don't think there was some really useful information there, and it certainly helped me formulate some more ideas. I think some information about success rates would have been really helpful. I don't remember there being anything in there about success rates. I certainly didn't make any notes about success rates. And I think some of it felt a little bit rushed, a little bit salesy. And maybe they didn't think that so many trust fundraisers would come along and want to ask some questions. I feel like they cut the Q&A a little bit short when there was time to go through some more of it. But I think on the whole, I came away feeling disappointed because we didn't get all the questions we want answered, but I felt like there was enough there to make it worthwhile going along, and there's some good points that's come out of it. So other people joined as well, which was fantastic. Liz was disappointed. I was a little bit disappointed, Liz. But Louise found it inspiring and got a new application up on their gateway, which is fantastic. Deborah says,
I don't think inspiring was the right word. Oh no, it did inspire me. Sorry, it was. I joined quite late, but it was just on the point where they were saying what the gateway's for, how to manage it, make sure your applications are up to date.
Yeah,
the sort of admin side, which at the end of the day we need, right? We need to know, because I think the concern had been, the concern had been that we were all of us separately were submitting stuff into the ether, whereas at least I think I got a sense that at least they do look at them all, that they rely on the very short summary of your project and their volume that they're dealing with.
Yes.
I found that all quite insightful, because then it's like, well, it is real people looking at it. It's always a good reminder. And I've now put an annual reminder to check and refresh if I haven't heard anything.
Brilliant. Thanks. Thank you. That's really helpful insight. Thank you for popping your camera on and being brave as well. Really appreciate that. Where was it? And Deborah said, very client, not funder focused. And I thought that as well. Would be amazing if we could see through the portal if how many times our apps had been viewed. Absolutely. Because like we were saying, sometimes it feels like it goes out into the ether and it never gets looked at. The recording, Gemma, it wasn't recorded, so there is no chance to catch up on it, but hopefully some of the information that I've noted down here might be helpful for you. Claire, not enough time for Q&A. And Edward says, I didn't realise they had 400 charitable trusts going through the portal. I thought it was 200. Yes. So, yes, I think, who did they take over? Was it HSBC recently? Someone will tell me in the chat who took it over. So, yes, there's now 400 charitable trusts who make use of the portal. Each has its own trust manager, which is good. I'm guessing there's not 400 trust managers and that they look after more than one trust each, which is still a lot of trusts for somebody to look after, even divided by, 10 or so. There's no details typically that are provided about trust meetings, and no feedback is provided. Now, I have had dealings with an individual trust through the Ludlow Gateway, and I have managed to kind of be in touch with that administrator and got some more information from them. But I think that's a one-off more than something that is happening on the regular. And kind of going into this knowing that you're not going to get feedback is helpful in a way. It's not helpful that we don't get feedback, but it's helpful that we know we're not going to, and we just have to put something out there using some of the tips I'll show you in a minute. So we can kind of put it out there and forget about it in a way. And hope that it's going to come off, maybe. So over 19,000 applications have been submitted through the portal, with £5 million in grants distributed to the date of that webinar last week. The average grant was around £5,000. So there's some things that came out of the webinar to consider when you're making an application. General applications are preferred. These reach all the trusts where your project matches their objectives. So I have always recommended, kind of putting a general application on there, but also if you come across a trust that you think you fit really well from your research, from looking at the Charity Commission, to submit to them as well. I don't think my thoughts around that have changed. I just think having a general application out there means that you're going to hit more trusts that potentially you match their objectives. There's no limit on how many applications you can submit for the same project. So look at the different ways that you can present them. Can there be different amounts that you ask for, a different focus? So if you're doing something with children, can one be about focused on mental health? Can one be focused on their well-being? Can one be focused on physical activities? So you can have more. You can have the same project and just look at it in different ways. Can it one be about capital items that you need? One be about more unrestricted project costs, core costs that you might need. Submit separate applications for each of your projects, and again look at how you can present these differently and multiple times to hit more trust objectives. If you can be looking at different ways that you can think about those projects and having multiple applications on the portal for your different projects that are slightly different, looking at the project in slightly different ways, you're going to hit more objectives and more keywords, which we'll go on to in a bit. So you're going to get looked at by more of the trusts that are on there. Applications are archived after 12 months. So as it was saying, put that notification on that you need to relook at these after 12 months and remember to resubmit. If your contact details change, if anything fundamental changes in the project, remember to go in and make those changes too. So when you're being considered, everything is being considered fresh and up to date. Any trusts that get added onto the portal automatically then get access to all of the submissions that are on the gateway. So you might have submitted something 4 or 5, 6 months ago that then might get looked at by a new trust. So it's always worth making sure everything is up to date. So there were some application tips that came out of it. The recommendation was to include a clear, compelling summary of your application, as this will significantly improve your success. So something I do with my 2-page kind of applications is always include an executive summary at the beginning that summarizes the project and puts my ask amount in there. The reason I started doing that was because a lot of administrators, they have to summarize projects to present to the trustees. They don't always get a look at your full application. Sometimes it's just that summary, and if they're interested, they'll then look at your full application. So to help the administrators out, I started doing an executive summary so they could literally just lift that because it contained everything they needed and in words that I wanted to use because I knew it matched what the funder was looking for, rather than the administrator having to make up something for me. Then you can start doing that. And this sounds like something that the Ludlow Gateway is recommending to do as well. Strong keywords will enhance visibility and help match with relevant trusts. So really think about the keywords that you're using to help you get matched more. What are your projects hitting? What are the impacts that your projects are hitting? What are the objectives that your projects are hitting that you can highlight? So you're going to get picked up more. And if you're doing multiple applications for the same project, you can use different keywords and look at things in a different way, like we've discussed before. Show you've identified the need and why you are best placed to meet it. Some of these things are things that we do anyway. It's things that we've been taught to do as trust fundraisers. But I think sometimes it's great to hear it from a funder so that we're reminded and that we go back through the checklist in our head and make sure that that we're definitely doing those things. Thank you, Grace, for picking out my spelling mistake. This is what you do when you do things at 8 o'clock in the morning and you're trying to get cats off your desk and you're not quite paying attention. Thank you. I will try and correct that for next time. Clearly show who or what will benefit from a grant and the positive impacts. Again, these aren't things that we don't know. These are just helpful reminders for us. Include timescales of your project and a clear and well thought out budget. And I think timescales are really important because if you're putting something on there that might sit there for 12 months, and someone might not look at this until 6-7 months down the line, then to have those time scales and have the time frame for them to go, I really like this, but have I missed the boat with it? Oh, probably I'll pass it. If you've got those clear time scales on there and they can look at it and go, no, this is still relevant, this is still something that we can support, they'll be in this phase now, this is where we'll be, then that really helps them to not just dismiss your submission out of hand. And be really clear and concise, as always. If we're looking at those 2-page applications that we can put in, that we can attach to our submissions, use statistics and figures effectively to help demonstrate that you know what you're doing, that you're a safe pair of hands, that you've done these things before, that you know what you're looking at, that you've asked the right questions of your beneficiaries, that you've been monitoring and evaluating the project if it already exists, and that you can demonstrate that you know what you're doing, that you know why you're needed, you know why you're there. Case studies, stories, always good to help put that more personal side of things in, and help resonate with trustees who might be looking at these applications. So those were the things that came out for me. If anybody's got anything else that they want to add, please do. I'm just going to go back through and have a look what some of you are saying in the chat. Jeffrey's on LinkedIn. Again, another use for LinkedIn is to make sure that you're following your peers, and she's put some great summaries from the Ludlow portal onto LinkedIn. So yeah, do go along and have a look at what she's put there. No, I wasn't quite sure, Fiona, what they mean by keyword, what they might view as a keyword. But I think it's just making sure you're matching objectives, particularly if you're looking at your projects in lots of different ways. It helps you be able to have lots of variety of keywords that might come up. Categories for client interest seem quite limited. That was from Deborah. Another recommendation for Joe's notes. Absolutely, do go and have a look at Joe's notes. Louise, I wonder how active or passive the 400 plus trusts are behind the scenes. Would it be classified as a donor advised fund? I do wonder that as well, because I always think the use of a gateway or a mechanism like Ludlow, like HSBC used to be, was that the trustees, were trustees just using that for their admin? Were they using that as a way to be a little bit more hands off? How involved do they get in making those? I'm guessing it's like a filtration system, isn't it? That they can we know how many applications trustees are seeing and how many they're trying to get through and how under pressure they are, and this is a good way of being able to filter out anything that doesn't match with them. Somebody's doing that on their behalf, and then they can look at the ones that are a good match. And I guess with the summary, that it's being presented in exactly the way that I was talking about before, the trustees might just see the summary of a project, and if they're interested in it, then they'll want to see more, because it's easier to have a look at the summaries of, if you're looking at 10, 20 different applications, you can quite easily digest a summary in 10 minutes, 5 minutes, than looking through a whole application. And then if you're interested, you can ask for more information on that. So I'm guessing that's what's happening here. Amy says, Ludlow, do send regular reminders as your 12 months is approaching. Now, I've never had that before, so that's new to me. It gave me plenty of time to update and add new applications. That's amazing if that happens. I've never had that happen automatically. Liz says the same. This is interesting. I don't think I've received anything like this when my initial application expired. I haven't had anything. Holly says, sorry, did I miss something? Is the supporting document only meant to be 2 pages maximum? I mean, supporting documents can be, there's no limit put out there by the gateway about how much you can submit. There's a kind of a limit to the file size that you can add in. But I think normally, as trust fundraisers, we've always been taught to be really succinct with what we put out there, for those exact reasons that a trustee doesn't have a lot of time to read through all the submissions that they're getting. So to be able to succinctly put our projects down in 2 pages is a really useful tool to have, and be able to do that, because it just means we're getting everything down really succinctly. They don't have to trail through pages and pages and pages of applications. It does put some trustees off if they have to read through lots and lots of copious amounts of words. So I have always, as a trust funder, been taught to look at a 2-page application if an application form or kind of something to fill in hasn't been provided for us. And that's something I would recommend to try and do, is stick to those 2-page with that executive summary, with your ask really clear at the beginning and at the end. Gemma, is it recommended to put an ask amount in if it's for a general running cost application, as different trusts could have different grant levels? And I think that's what they were talking about being able to submit multiple applications for the same project, that you could go in there and put different grant levels in. So, you could do one that's just looking at capital, you could do one that's just looking at your core costs, you could do one that's looking at a particular element of the project. If you were running wellbeing classes, you could just put that in. If you were looking at a mental health service, you could just put the cost for that in. I think that's where they were kind of talking about you could then add them in with different levels that you were looking for. Amy said, this is the automated email received. Not sure if I signed up or not, but super helpful reminders. That is super helpful. And we're all now going to be going off and looking why we're not getting these reminders, aren't we? Not had this either, Fiona. Louise saying she's value chain are key words for one of their trusts. They suggest not to bother uploading your accounts as supporting docs because they will get these from the Charity Commission. Yes, that was one of my additional notes, was to say that as well. And that's refreshing to see, because it frustrates me a lot when they, applications ask you to add your, or send in the post, which is even more frustrating, your full accounts, because they're easily downloaded from the Charity Commission. There should be no need for us to print them out and send them in the post, or add a link to them in an application form, or upload them, because they're all available on the Charity Commission, or should be. Amy's looking through the portal to see if she's clicked anything, because we're all hoping there's a magic button that she's pressed somewhere, and she can enlighten us and show us how she's getting these great reminders. But if not, like we were saying, put those reminders in your own diary once you've submitted that application, to go back through and refresh it and update it, because they will be archived after 12 months. So I hope you found that useful for those that didn't go, or as a good refresher for those that did go along. Like I said, the thing that I thought was missing most was success rates, and we're seeing this a lot with funders, aren't we, that we don't get that success rate information. So we really don't know what percentage of success we're going to have by spending 2, 3, 4, 10 hours on an application. The printed accounts, ours are 39 pages long, Holly. Yes, I sympathise. I've had, and especially where lots of organisations now are incorporating their annual reviews and their accounts together, so it makes it an even longer document to have to print out and send in the post when it's all on the Charity Commission. Anyway, that's a topic for another day, isn't it? Let's not get started on that. Okay. So let's move on to the Greggs Foundation. So their new grant round opened last week before, I'm losing track. They're offering grants of up to £20,000 per year for up to 2 years. They will cover core costs, rent, salaries, all that good stuff that we don't always see coming up. And essential running costs for local organisations working in selected UK areas. So in this grant round, that's Belfast, Coventry, Derby, Gateshead, Hull, Northumberland, Preston, Sefton, South Tyneside, and B45, which is southwest Birmingham. So if you're in any of those areas and you fit that you have an annual income between 25,000 and £1 million, you have free reserves of less than 6 months running costs, and you have a clear local impact in one of those priority areas, it's definitely worth having a look and see whether you fit the criteria. I'm going to share in the chat the link for you to go and have a look for yourselves and check their eligibility, and then you can apply. The closing date for this one is 12 noon on the 22nd of August. They haven't indicated that they might close early. You know, some of trusts now are putting on, if we get so many applications, that we might close earlier. But it's always worth, you know, if you see these applications and you're a really good fit, submitting as early as you can, just in case. So that's a good one for any of you out there in those areas, because it does look at those core costs, which we're seeing less and less of. So I thought that was a good thing, if you hadn't spotted that one, to bring it to your attention. So the other one is the James Tudor Foundation. Now, I put this on LinkedIn a couple of weeks ago and it got a lot of traction. So I thought I would bring it here so that we can all make sure that we see this opportunity. They've recently done a strategic review and relaunched their grant programs. And there's a few things that have changed. So the medical research stream has closed completely. That's now not available anymore. The health, education and relief of sickness funds have now combined into a broader physical health programme, and a new mental health stream has been added. If you were previously receiving hospice care, what is with this cat today? She just wants to be the superstar on camera. Hospice care, if you were receiving it, if you're receiving support for hospice care in the past, this is now being limited to organisations in South West England and South Wales. And their international programme is now by invitation only. So that might have closed some opportunities for some of you, but also opened up some opportunities for some of you too. So you can apply for up to £25,000. They are usually only awarded for 1 year, although occasionally longer funding may be considered. They're really, really open to you contacting them, and I'd always recommend that with any trust that you're looking at applying to, if you can, is to reach out to them and have a conversation with them, and they are really open for you to do that with them. They will consider core, project and capital costs. So again, not something we always see with those core costs and capital costs. So again, a big tick for them. And they offer both small under 10k and large over 10k grants. So again, it's worth having a look where you fit. The physical and mental health is a 2-stage process, and they have an eligibility checker on their website. For the hospice care, it's a 1-stage, but they're not launching that until October. So, you can start having those conversations with them now if you're in the areas that they support in the Southwest and in South Wales. You can definitely start having those conversations with them now. Oh no, that's it. I thought there was another slide, but that's it for now. So I'm just going to share their details in the chat as well, in case you want to go and have a look at that one. So I think what they've done is really streamlined what they were looking at, made it really clear where their priorities lie. Again, the only thing that they haven't shared is their success rates, but I think because they've now got a couple of new streams and they're closing a couple of streams, I'm hoping that maybe a little bit down the line, once these new streams have embedded, they might start showing and sharing with us their success rates, because that really helps us decide whether it's worth our time putting in an application to them. If you're a really good fit, again, reach out to them and have those conversations. They're a good funder. They want to hear from you. They make it really clear on their website that they're open to have those conversations. So please do. And then you had a sneak preview, but I just wanted to touch on LinkedIn for trust fundraisers again. It's been a couple of weeks now since we talked about this topic, and about how I'm seeing more trust funders, using LinkedIn as a way to get information about new criteria that they're launching. The James Tudor Foundation, they put that information on LinkedIn. Greg's foundation did too. They're sharing projects that they've supported, so you can get insight into the kind of things that they're looking at. And I think it's a really, really useful tool. And I think we were talking about how LinkedIn can be used for those moments where you can't make an application to a trust. They won't accept unsolicited applications, and raising the profile of your organisation in LinkedIn is a really good way of getting you noticed, especially if you're using the language that the funders are using in your LinkedIn posts, that you're shouting about your organization's impact. We're very good about saying, you know, we've done this really great thing, or we've had funding from this, but sometimes we forget to talk about the need, what we need, and the impact that we're having, the good things that we're doing. You know, as fundraisers, we should be sharing that too. What are we learning from our organizations that we think funders would be really interested in seeing about? Have you got any really good case studies and stories that you can share on your own LinkedIn, and share what that's showing you, share the impact that that's had on the beneficiaries? If you've done a site visit, you've been to one, you know, a pet hospital, or you've been to a well-being class, you've been to a youth mentoring session, show what you've seen there and talk about how that's made you feel about your organization. Use your own profile, you know, make sure that your profile is talking about what you're doing in your organization, not just in a kind of businessy job way, but also the good things that you're supporting to happen through your fundraising. And use it to engage with funders, you know, putting a message on, it's great to see these things being funded, we do similar things too, connecting with those funders, using your peers to understand what's going on in the fundraising landscape. You know, we were talking about Jo Jeffrey earlier, following her on LinkedIn to get those insights. It's a really underutilized tool in trust fundraising. We see it as something that's often used for corporate fundraising, but actually it's something that's coming up more and more and more in trust fundraising. So if you've been doing any of the things that we've talked about out over the last couple of months and want to share any successes, anything that you've seen, now's the time to do that. I'd be really interested to see if you're starting to do these things, if you're dipping your toe in. It's like any social media, isn't it? That it can become overwhelming, that you have to continuously post things on there. But I think it's looking at what you can post that will be insightful, that will help you get on the radar of a funder. Have you had those internal conversations about your organization using LinkedIn like they use any other social media to demonstrate what they've got going on? So Louisa, I use LinkedIn to track down Innocent Foundation alongside a note to their general contact email. It did yield a call with them and our Ethiopia team after about 12 months on 2 or 3 follow-ups. Absolutely. Sometimes it's just that gateway in, isn't it? It's just getting on their radar. And that's when we were talking about not being able to make applications to those unsolicited applications. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get on a funder's radar. We're trying to make ourselves known without, you know, sending those letters or emails in the hope that we're going to be the one that they suddenly want to talk to. This is a way of doing it. And getting your organization out there, getting that impact out there, because trust funders are using LinkedIn more and more to speak to their audience. It's not just about those corporate connections like it used to be for the corporate fundraising team. So really interesting, Louise, to see that you've used that in the past. And then there was something from Dell. If you're looking for success rates, there is now this Google Doc which might be helpful. Funder success rates. That's amazing. I have seen this on the Trust Fundraising hub as well, that we're starting to collect those as a sector, which is really, really, really good. And I think that will be really useful for everybody, isn't it? When you're making those tough decisions, when you've got a finite amount of time to be able to go. Abby says, how do I balance building a brand for myself as a fundraiser and connecting with other funders, with engaging potential funders? If I'm writing relatable content for fundraisers, I'm worrying I'm alienating funders and vice versa. I think it depends what you want to do with your profile. If you're looking to build a profile that is more of a consultant profile and you want to work with fundraisers, then that's something you have to make the decision about, whether that's what you want your LinkedIn profile to be, or whether you're working for an organisation as a charity and that's who you want to get on the funders' radar. I think that's the decision that you need to make about what you want to use your profile for, what you're going to get the most out of it for. If you're working for a charity and the charity can build their own profile and do all those things, then that can be done through the charity's own profile for you. You can work with your comms team to be able to build that profile and do all the things you might do as your own profile. It's about, you can then work with your comms team to use your own, choose a charity's profile to do all those things. I mean, ideally you'd want both. You'd want to be able to put your things on there, what you're seeing as a fundraiser, getting your name out there as a fundraiser for funders. But if you're looking to create a profile that is looking more as a fundraiser to fundraiser, then that's the decision you have to make, which way you want to go with that. No problem, Liz. Thanks so much for joining us today. So we've just got some time now for Q&A. If there's anything that we've missed today, anything that you wanted to say that we haven't had a slot for, a place for, and the cat's back again, here she is, then please do use this time now to ask any of those questions, anything that you're seeing in the sector, anything you want to talk about when we come together again in September, any topics. You can always drop me a message in LinkedIn if there's a topic that you want to see covered, anything that you want to go over. Anything anybody's having problems with that you want to get some insight into, anything that we can help with, I can help with, or we can help with as a collective, please do use this time to shout up and ask anything that you want to do. And in the meantime, I'm just going to grab the link for the next Let's Chat Live, which, as I said, will be in September on the 23rd. So I'm just going to pop that in the chat. So you can book onto that one if you want to. So again, there's some information here about monetary fundraising and how we can help you, how you can connect with us through social media and follow along with what we're doing and some of the tips and tricks that we offer, and also some of the services that we can support you with as well. As always, I'm always around on LinkedIn, or you've got my email addresses from signing up today. So if you need any help or support, please do reach out to me. It doesn't have to be just within these live sessions. I'm always here to try and help if I can. And like I said, if there's any topics that you want to see us cover in September, if there's anything that you want to go over, we're also putting together some on-demand sessions and some live sessions to do some training. So if there's anything you want to see there for us to cover, please do let me know. Any gaps that you see you think is not being covered anywhere else that we can cover, that would be fantastic. But thanks so much for joining me today. I really hope that you found this format and the information that I provided really useful. Thanks so much. I hope you all have an amazing summer. Make sure you carve out some time for you to have a break, even if it's just a long weekend, and come back and feeling refreshed in September. It's back to school, isn't it? Back to school in September. So we feel like we can get all the brand new stationery. We can always come back refreshed and revigored and see what the fundraising landscape is like for us in September. But thank you again so much for joining me. It's always so lovely to spend time with you all. I hope to see you over on LinkedIn and to see you in September when we come together on the 23rd. Have a fantastic summer, everyone. Thanks so much. Take care. Bye, everyone.